friends, this is going to be my first reading wrap up. I haven't done one all year. As a matter of fact, my video uploading has been very sparse since November. The reason being that I wasn't posting in November or December is because I have a medical condition that I don't think I've actually spoken to about on this channel, but maybe I'll make a video about that at one time, that flared up beginning of November. Then I spent most of November and December just recovering at home and trying to get my stamina back.
All around me are familiar faces.
Even though I wasn't recording in November and December, I was reading a ton of books. So this reading wrap up is to go through all the books that I read in October, November, and December. In October, I only read 3 books, the first of them being A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. Now this one is a Dracula retelling done in the perspective of one of his brides. This is a gothic horror novel. So his bride Costanza is writing a letter to him explaining why she did the things that she did. This is a polyamorous story where Dracula takes multiple wives or multiple partners. I really like this book. The writing was absolutely amazing. The audiobook was very well done, and this book was kind of spicy, which I did not expect it to be. The next book I read is Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. Ashley Winstead did me wrong with this book. This book is Twilight fanfic with a random drug ring plotline thrown in there. The best way to describe this is that it's a mix of Twilight and Where the Crawdad Sings. We have our main character Ruth, whose father is the pastor of this town, and then we have her friend Everett, or Ever, I think his name is, who they grew up together. She's very sheltered. She lives this very sheltered, like, conservative Christian life. This book is a whodunit. There's a murder that happens at the very beginning of this book. There are then murders that continue to carry on throughout the book that we are kind of expected to go along in this thriller ride. Now this book was really horrible. It ended up on my worst books of the year list, mainly because there's too many Twilight mentions in this book, and the ending of it was really horrible. Like, what ending? There is no ending. The book just ended. After that, I picked up Trust of the MLC by Brandon Sanderson. Now this is a Princess Bride retelling, but what if Buttercup had more to do? So we have Tress, and then we have Charlie, and Charlie is the Duke's son, and the Duke is determined to marry Charlie off so he can strengthen his kingdom. But Tress and Charlie love each other. So the Duke goes off on this sea voyage with Charlie, and he comes back without Charlie. So Tress is immediately concerned about what happened to Charlie. So she goes on this pirate adventure across the seas to rescue him. The world building in this, I feel like, is done very well and very tightly, because the Emerald Sea part of this is that the spores in the Emerald Sea will explode into plants, and then we have the Crimson Sea, which I think the spores there just explodes, and then we have the Midnight Sea, where those spores turn into like kind of ghost type monsters that you can control. I like this book. It got 3 stars for me, mainly because I felt like the characters spent too much time on that boat, and then there was a reveal at the end that I honestly would have rather not have happened. Then the next book I read is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter also by Brandon Sanderson, and this one is in like an Asian inspired world where we have Yumi, and she's kind of this deity in her land, and then we have Painter that in his world he paints nightmares, and nightmares are kind of these shadow beings that once you paint them they get destroyed and they die. But we have Yumi and Painter who are able for some reason to inhabit each other's bodies, and they're trying to figure out the reason as to why they can do that, and try to figure out, you know, the secrets of their own respective worlds. And I give this book 5 stars. It is a romance fantasy novel, and I think this is Brandon Sanderson's first foray in trying to write romance, and I think he did a really good job, and so I'm excited to read what else he writes in romance. The next book I picked up is They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. I think this year I was in my serial killer era, and so we have 2 characters in this book. We have Carly, who is a freshman student, and we have Scarlett, who is a professor. And Scarlett is a serial killer. She kills off men, kind of in the same vein as Dexter, where she only kills off men who have done wrongs in the world, mainly men who have committed some kind of sexual assault against women, and it's their time to get got. There is a plot twist that happens halfway throughout the book that I saw coming, but I wasn't mad at it, and therefore I gave it 4 stars. The next book I read is Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree, and this is the prequel to Legends and Lattes. In this prequel, we have Viv, who's still an orc, and she's still doing her like warrior orc ways, but she gets injured at the very beginning of the book. Kind of hunkers down into this small town to recover, where she strikes up this friendship with the owner of this bookshop, and it's this cute, cozy fantasy where we have Viv, who's working at this bookshop, and then we have Viv that's also kind of trying to discover the secrets or the mystery behind the bone dust part of the book. I gave it 3 stars because I don't think that it was as good as Legends of Lattes. I don't think it like held a candle to Legends of Lattes. But I still really liked it. It was a good time, and Travis Baldree did do the narration for the audiobook, and he also did a really good job. Next book I picked up was The Woman in Me by Britney Spears, and this is her memoir. I listened to this on audiobook, and I highly recommend that you guys do the same because Michelle Williams does a really good job. I think in this book, it made me kind of just realize the hardship that Britney went through in her career and in her personal life and with her family. She is a better woman than I, because if my family had done anything that hers did, I would be out for blood. I would be suing them for sure. Next book I picked up is Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. This book is kind of sold to me as a sapphic love story with a sudden turn into horror towards the end of the book. And most of this book was a cute love story. There were red flags that our main character was kind of ignoring along the way, and I ignored them too up until I want to say the last 50 pages of the book, and then that's when the horror really came in. I think about that ending a lot, but what I would like to have happen is that if we got more into the horror earlier on in the book is only 200 pages. So I would rather at the 100-page mark for us to really get into the horror part of the book, which is why I gave it 4 stars. But overall, I still really liked it. Next book I read is A Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn, and this is the first book in the Veronica Speedwell series. And Veronica is a lepidopterist. She is out for adventure. She's out for exploration. But at the very beginning of the novel, her aunt passes away, and her aunt passes away triggers this whole series of events. Someone is out to kill or get Veronica, and so she has this, I think it's a duke that comes and rescues her and takes her back to London and puts her in the care of Stoker. Stoker and Veronica has this will they won't they relationship. I honestly just need them to fuck. I need them to kiss on the mouth, and I know that this book is slow burn, but I'm in it for the long haul just because I love Veronica and Stoker so much. The next book I picked up is Butcher and Blackbeard, and this book is about 2 serial killers falling in love. Need I say more? The book opens up with Blackbeard, who is at, I think it's like either house or apartment complex of this serial killer that she is going to kill because he is a pedophile, but she accidentally falls into, I don't know if it's her trap or the serial killer's trap, but she was able to kill him and then she got trapped. So she's just stuck in a cage, and then Butcher, he comes along. He also shows up because he was meaning to kill that pedophile, but then he finds Blackbeard instead. And they strike up a friendship where they decide that they'll meet once a year and enter this competition between the two of them where they will kill a serial killer, and whoever kills that serial killer first wins. And this is a funny rom-com story about these 2 serial killers that end up falling in love. And I was really liking this book up until the 70% mark when they finally got together and they started to have some really unhinged sex. The sex scene was a lot for me. It was a lot of BDSM, and I am not into that. Therefore, once we hit that point in the book, I was just kind of like, can we move on? There was a lot of doing the nasty in this book. But I gave it 4 stars because I still liked it up until the 70% mark. Next book I picked up was A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. That is a really, really long title, and I gave this 3 stars. I read this only purely because I was curious as to what was happening in the movie, because I'm not going to go to a movie theater to watch it. I'd rather read the book first and then stream it later once it comes out on streaming. This book is a prequel to everything that happened in the Hunger Games, and we are following President Snow as a teenager, his kind of like rise to power and how he becomes the supervillain that he is. I thought this book was okay. I gave it 3 stars. The worst crime that this book committed was the lyrics that Lucy Gray had to sing. I thought the lyrics was pretty poorly well done. Suzanne Collins, stick to your day job as a writer and not as a lyricist. So we're following the 10th, or is it the 11th Hunger Games, where the Capitol has kind of grown bored of it. No one's watching it. The people that are in charge of the Hunger Games are out to revamp it, and that's where Cornelius Snow comes into play because all of his classmates are tasked with being sponsors for the tributes. He ends up falling in love with his tribute. He does things that teaches him what society is supposed to be like and why the districts need the Capitol. And like I said, it's kind of his rise to super villainy. We're not supposed to root for him. I think this book is to just mainly make us understand why the Capitol is the way that they are. The next book I read is Sea of Ruin, and this is a dark romance where we have Bennett, and she is a lady pirate captain. Then we have her husband, who she doesn't get along with in the beginning of the book. They're on this ship together, but she like imprisons him. They have this Royal Navy ship that's following them, but they can't escape. So she kind of offers herself up to the Royal Navy captain. His name is Ashley, in order for her crew to escape. Her husband, Priest, is on the ship that's escaping, and she knows very well that if she's captured, he's going to try and come after her to rescue her, and she's kind of banking on that. What I will say about this book is that it is pure porn. Every like 5 pages, there was another sex scene happening. The other thing that annoyed me about this book is they were on the boat for so long. They were on many boats. They were on 5 different boats. She was constantly getting captured. I just could not buy for 1 second that she is this badass lady pirate, because there was a storyline where it's a love triangle between her husband Priest and then Captain Ashley, who she ends up falling in love with. So then we have a polyamorous story. And then there was this reveal that happened at the 60% mark of the book that had me so angry. I just wanted to fling the book out the window. I think that the author, Pam Godwin, had just undone the work that she did in the first 60% of the book by making this reveal or this plot twist happen the way that it went down. I had rather her off Priest than have this plot twist happen. The next 2 books I read was Heartstopper Volume 1 and Volume 2. So Heartstopper are following these 2 teenage boys, Nick and Charlie, who end up falling in love with each other. One of them is out to their family and out to their friends and to their high school. The other one is still in the closet, but they end up falling in love with each other, and the story is very, very cute. It had me blushing and kicking my feet, and I loved it so much. And it ended on a cliffhanger, therefore I immediately had to pick up Volume 2. Volume 1 I gave 5 stars, Volume 2 I gave 4 stars. I still really liked it, but it was nowhere near the level of Volume 1. The next set of books are books that I read for Sarah without an H's Secret Santa Readathon. If you're not a Patreon member of hers, what are you doing? So the first book I read is The Other Side of Night, and this is, I believe, a thriller where we have this cop and she's been dismissed from the force and she's desperate to get back in, and she is at a bookstore or a library or something like that. She picks up this book. Inside the book there's this writing that says, "He's going to kill me." So then she's on a mission to figure out who wrote this into the book, and she finds out the last person that checked that book out of the library. So she goes and pays them a visit, and when she gets to the house, turns out it's the house of her ex-boyfriend. The rest of the book is her trying to figure out what is the relation between her ex-boyfriend and the person who potentially wrote this cry for help within the book. It is, I want to say it is a thriller, and it had me guessing what the twist was going to be. Once the twist was revealed to us, I was just like, that's not what I exactly wanted out of this book, but okay, I guess. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. The next book I read is Ghost Eaters by, I'm going to butcher this, Clay McLeod Chapman. This book is probably one of the worst things that I've ever read. Please go ahead and check out my Goodreads review for this, because I was scathing. I was unrelentless about this book. So we are following Aaron and Silas, and at the very beginning and opening of this book, they are in college, I think, or maybe they're in high school. They have sex over a grave. It gave me the ick when it happened in the book, and it's giving me the ick now that I had to say it out loud. I just didn't like that, and it kind of set the tone for the rest of the book. We have Erin, who's graduated from college. She's trying to start a new life. She's trying to get a job, and then we have Silas, who is a severe drug addict. Erin would do anything for Silas. She would literally die for Silas. The book did not spend enough time building their relationship for each other for me to understand why she would go so hard for Silas. Silas does end up overdosing. Erin is absolutely devastated, and she is out on a mission to figure out like how he died, and she figures out that he was taking this drug that allows you to see dead people. So in her desperation of wanting to see Silas again, she ends up taking this drug. The rest of the book is just her being paranoid when she's on this drug. This book was just so annoying, and the audiobook was so horribly narrated. And I was also trying to follow along with the Kindle version of the book. The writing was just so bad. One of my biggest writing pet peeves is when a writer, when they're trying to like bring across an emotion or a feeling, instead of just writing about that feeling, they put it in italics for internal dialogue. It tells me that the writer doesn't know how to write internal dialogue well. They kept repeating this phrase over and over again, which is, instead of saying want to get high, they would say want to get haunted. And in the audiobook, the narrator would say, and I kid you not, she would say it like this, want to get haunted. It grated on my nerves. I wanted it to end. At the end of this book, I was listening to it 3 times because I just wanted it to be over. This book was so horrible and all the characters were so unlikable. If I had an unlikable friend or person in my life that was toxic, I would cut that cord. I would be done. I'd be done with that. It's not healthy. Aaron just kept doing the same thing over and over and over again. And at the end, I was like, you kind of deserved what you got. The next book I read was Spear by Nicola Griffith, and this is a King Arthur retelling. So we're following a girl and her mom, and they live in the woods, and she's like living off the land, but as she gets older, she knows that she's destined for more, so she decides to travel to the kingdom to serve the king. The feeling that I got out of this book is that she is Arthur. You're also trying to figure out who are the other characters in the books, like who's Merlin, who's Lancelot, who's Guinevere. Like, I think this book was just like fine. I gave it 3 stars because it was a King Arthur retelling, so you could only expect so much. And the book is really short. I think it was somewhere between 150 to 200 pages, so I like flew through it. This is nothing to write home about. It wasn't the best thing I read, and it wasn't bad either. The next book I read is Ink Blood Scissors Cry by Emma Torres. Now in this book we're following this family who is upkeeping this magical library, and in the beginning of the book the father passes away, which then results in the family kind of just falling apart, and we're following these 2 sisters. One of them is named Joanna. The other one I don't remember. Let's just call her Emily. Emily is up in the Arctic, and every year on the same date she has to like keep moving for like 24 to 48 hours because magic does not affect her. And then we have the sister Joanna who's able to use magic. So it's like blood magic, where we have the sister who's able to use magic. She would like put her blood into the book, and then she's able to use a spell. And then we have the sister who's not able to use magic, thinks that she's just like not special. And then we're following a 3rd character. His name is Nicholas, and he is a scribe for this very well-renowned library. They're rich. His uncle is kind of the supervillain. But I really like this book. The beginning of it was very slow until they introduced Nicholas. It is kind of just like this world adventure of them trying to figure out what happened to the dad who passed away, what happened to the moms, what's going on with this magical library. And I really like this book. I ended up giving it 4 stars. The next book I read is Little Eyes by Samantha Schweblin. All you need to know is that it is a Black Mirror episode, or it should be a Black Mirror episode. We have this new technology introduced where you can buy these Furby-like toys. People who buy them bring them into the homes, and then the toy is then controlled by an actual human being that could be anywhere in the world. So you are having a visitor that's controlling this toy that you don't know anything about them, you don't know anything about their life, but you're bringing them into your home, you being kind of like a guardian or a dweller, and then the person that buys that toy is then in charge of like the upkeep and stuff like that. But with any new technology, there are some setbacks. So within this story, we're following multiple characters all over the world and their experience with this Furby-like kind of toy. Things go wrong. I will say that no one has a happy ending in this book, but I ended up giving it 5 stars because it reads exactly like a Black Mirror episode. The next book I read is Light from Uncommon Stars by Rika Aoki. So in this story, we have this character. I want to say her name is Vivian, or no, it's Katrina. No, I don't actually know. But we have this character who makes a deal with the devil, and I don't remember what she got out of it, but the devil is getting 7 souls, and he wants 7 souls who are kind of prodigies with playing the violin. This girl is out to get her 7th soul, and she meets this one character who is teaching herself how to play the violin, and so she takes them under her as a student, and that's going to be her 7th soul. And then we also have an alien who then buys a donut shop to escape the war on their planet. What you need to know about this book is that it's very weird. Nothing really makes sense in this book. It got 3 stars from me, but now that I'm saying it out loud, I feel like it should have been 2 stars. I did not like this book. It kind of gave what the fuck, like why are we following this deal with the devil, and then why are we introducing literal extraterrestrials on the planet to escape war in their universe. I don't know. I wasn't getting it. The next book is Crying H Mart by Michelle Zauner, and this is her memoir of her time having to take care of her mother while her mother dies of cancer. Michelle and her mother formed a bond over Korean food, and I will say that Michelle, the way that she writes Korean food in this book had my mouth watering. It made me hungry for some Korean inspired food. However, I ended up giving this 3 stars, and I kind of feel bad about that because I kind of wondering if I should even rate memoirs, because it's kind of like a judgment on their life, and who am I to say, because it's your life and it's your experience. I kind of came out of this with just like her relationship with her mother just being very toxic. I just don't want to read about toxicity in a relationship. I think this is a case of it's me and not the book, because like I mentioned before, if I have a toxic person or a toxic friend in my life, I will just cut them out of my life. I will be moving on for my own mental health and for my own peace. It's just hard for me to read books where people or characters can't see that. Therefore, it made me not really like this book. Like, it was fine. The next book I read is Disorientation, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the author's name because I will just butcher it. Needless to say, this book is about this PhD student who's trying to write their dissertation about this one Chinese poet. Our main character, she is a Chinese American, I believe, and this book is satirical, and I don't understand satire. Therefore, I did not get this book. I gave it 2 stars because it was trying to make some very, very fair points about the Asian American experience in the US, how they face racism, sexism, and like I said, very fair points that I was trying to make. However, I think the satire of it made the book fall apart. Also, I just did not like a single character in this book. Our main character, I found her to be annoying and paranoid, and somewhere along the book, it just lost the plot. I really didn't get anything out of this book. I think that the points that I was trying to make came off very heavy-handed, and it read like a Twitter thread. I just didn't really get much out of this book, and I wouldn't recommend it. There are other books that can be read if you want to read more about the Asian American experience. And I feel bad because this was also something that I read for the Secret Santa readathon, and I feel bad for my Secret Santa because I did not like this book. The next book I read was Start a Villain by John Scalzi. This is my first John Scalzi book, and I know that he's crazy popular, kind of in the same vein as Brandon Sanderson. And I was kind of nervous picking up this book because the way that it described to me didn't really sell it. We have our main character, who I think his name is Charlie, whose uncle passed away, and he inherits his uncle's business. And his uncle's business, as we learn to find out, is being a supervillain. It had intelligent cats, it had intelligent dolphins, it had a whole plot of Charlie learning how to be a supervillain. And Charlie in the beginning of this book is kind of down on his luck because he was fired from his job. He was a journalist. He lives in the Chicagoland area. The book is based, at least in the beginning of it, based in a town that is not far from where I live. So there were like places and streets that were mentioned where I was like, I know exactly where that is. Charlie is hard up for cash because he doesn't have a job. So once he finds out that he inherits his Uncle Jake's business and learns that he is a billionaire or a trillionaire, he's like, wow, that's a lot to, dump on one person at the same time. But he has to navigate the supervillain business because there are other supervillains that are coming out to get him. I like this book. I think I gave it 4 stars. I think after I read this one, I think I would be willing to pick up another John Scalzi book. This one was really short. It was, I think, about 250 pages. And then the next book that I picked up was Heartstopper Volume 3 and Volume 4. This was to kind of just round out my reading for the year because I wanted to read something quick, something that made me feel accomplished. And these books did it for me. I love the Heartstopper series. I have the 5th one to read, and I don't know if there's going to be a 6th. I really hope there is, but I think I heard rumors around the internet that this might be, or the 6th one might be the last one that Alice Osmond writes in the Heartstopper series, which is really sad because I like these books so much and I own all the physical copies. And so that is it. Those are all of the books that I read in October, November, December. I hope you enjoyed me reviewing these books and giving a recap on it. Please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to follow me on Instagram and Goodreads, the links for that is below. And thank you for watching.